Tanse. Thank you, Corey, for that warm introduction. I really appreciate you. So my name's Shanell Twan. I'm joining you today from Edmonton, Alberta, which is also known as Amisquahi Waskahegan, which is known as Beaver Hills Park. Here in Edmonton, this is traditional Treaty 6 territory, home of the Cree, Blackfoot, Dene, Nakota Sioux, Saulteaux, and Métis people. And I acknowledge that the land I live, work, and play on is treaty territory and that we are all treaty people. I'm joining you today. I've been asked to actually share with you guys a consumer perspective on safe supply. And so the difficulty that lies in that, additionally, the impacts and the benefits that I've seen personally from safe supply. So here in Edmonton, we have, which Avnish just elaborated on, the IOT program, and that unfortunately is our only option for safe supply right now for folks. I want to just kind of bring everybody back to October of 2020. When the city and the province initiated a COVID response that included opening the Edmonton Convention Centre, which is a large convention centre in downtown Edmonton, to be able to open the doors to about 300 community members daily who are maybe experiencing homelessness and who needed help isolating and finding shelter in place. So the numbers that came out upon the closure in March of the Edmonton Convention Centre, the Shaw, which we called here in Edmonton Pinawao, which means in Cree to shelter from the cold. We found out at the end of the shelter response that we had 5,000 unique individuals come through the doors of Tepinawa shelter. And so 5,000 unique individuals who are potentially experiencing homelessness, maybe some mental health issues, maybe issues related to their substance use, and the lack of well, eventually the closure that happened of one of our SCSs at the Boyle Street Community Services, which was moved over to the Tepinawa shelter. So I just allude to the 5,000 people, the unique individuals who came through the door of the shelter, because when we talk about the IO program here in Edmonton, we actually currently, as Avnish alluded to, have 43 people on the program here who are able to retain being on the program here in Edmonton. And so really when we think about the numbers, which I hate to do, but if we do the math on it, we're talking about so less than 50 people, so 43 people, less than 50 people of the 5,000 who potentially have access to a safe supply through the IO program. So when we equate that to numbers, like that's less than 1% of community members who are able actually to sorry, I forgot to start my timer, able to access a safe supply. So I wanted to kind of more talk to you guys today about some of the benefits that I've seen happen for the folks who are able to actually still be fortunate enough to be on the IO program currently. So I want to talk to you about C. C is a person who I've known for almost a decade now, who was able to at one point retain housing for a little while, received eviction notice due to helping other folks out. C, I think in large part due to the connection to the IO program, is actually now enrolling in a course to become an addictions counselor and addictions worker. I want to talk to you about G. G is somebody that I've known for probably 15, 20 years and currently on the IO program and able to have connections where this person has made family connections that weren't able to be made in the past decade due to issues surrounding his substance use. But now this person has access to relationships that they didn't formally have because of the situation that they were in. I want to talk to you about L. L is somebody who had their relationships with their children actually be able to come back online and to be able to reestablish relationships that had been lost over the course of many years, but have now been able to be reinstated. I want to talk to you about R. R is somebody who has been able to retain his housing and just absolutely flourish. He spends his time now reading novels. He's actually going to lend me his next book when he's done with it. But I'm talking about like these people in regards to the major life changes and the improvements in the quality of life that these folks have encountered due to the safe supply that they've been able to have access to. For me, it's a really difficult conversation because always think about, the powers that be and the people that do have the power to kind of change situations for folks. And right now, which has been alluded to, obviously, is the government. And I think the lack of capability or lack of willingness of this government to actually institute a larger or expand the safe supply program instead of trying to fight people and close it. It's just really, it's mind-boggling to me. And we've heard things like from the community of things like, this is murder, this is genocide. And potentially at this point, there isn't an argument that I can provide to folks to defend this, because the reality is the folks that don't have access to the safe supply, who don't have access to the IO program in my community, these are folks that are dying needless deaths endlessly on a daily, on a weekly basis. We are losing people in our community. I want to draw folks' attention. So recently here we had a councillor, Edmonton city councillor, who's actually trying to make more headway than our provincial government here in Edmonton. So Councillor Scott McKean, who had asked the rest of the city of Edmonton and the city councillors to kind of sign on to a letter demanding that the federal government actually step in and do something right now, just because of the lack of capability or the lack of political will that we have right now in our province, equals deaths in our community. And we're seeing these deaths firsthand. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a community across Canada that hasn't been touched negatively by overdose deaths. These deaths are needless, preventable deaths that don't need to happen. We need actually, big political will from the powers that be to actually institute greater changes to save Canadians' lives. Like these are our neighbors, these are our friends, our family. For me, it's not those people, these are my people. When I think about here in Edmonton, for example, we have the largest group of Indian residential school survivors in Canada. The IRS program that we serve out of Boyle Street is severely impacted. When we think about the community that we serve, I think that a safe supply is a very radical act of reconciliation when we think in terms of the folks who are being disproportionately affected. And as Indigenous people, I feel that safe supply is a radical act of reconciliation, and that we do need an expansion. We won't be able to wait till 2023 until we have a new government, because the reality is by then, almost everybody that I know and love would have probably been gone by then. So I just strongly encourage all of you. I know the fight seems endless sometimes, but you're all doing amazing work and are really appreciated, especially for those of us here in Alberta who feel like we have a boot across our neck. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing across the country to further the conversation about safe supply. And please do continue the fight. We need every single one of us. And something that Corey has said at the last panel conversation was something from his mentor, Bernie Pauly, which has actually stuck with me. And it's Corey will be able to reiterate it better, but it's really touched me. And I think what Bernie Pauly had told Corey was that what you do today might not change the system overnight, but what you do today will help the people. And so that's what that's what's been keeping me going is, you know what, if we can't fight the bigger fight with the politicians, let's just keep doing what we can do on the street. But eventually, hopefully, our voices are heard. I appreciate you all. Hi, message show.
Thank you so much, Shanell, for that incredibly powerful, heartfelt talk. My heart is with all of you there in Alberta. I actually worked in harm reduction in Calgary, Edmonton, Brooks, and Medicine Hat, and left right when our supervised consumption services was defunded by that same government. So if any of you are feeling angry about what's happening in Alberta, channel that towards support for people like Shanell, who are still there doing the work.